Hey Joey, September is over, so I'm here to tell you about all the books that I read in September. They are currently located behind me. I had quite the month. I really got into listening to audiobooks while I'm at work, so I can have an AirPod in, and I just, like me in the library, popped off. So, for some stats, I have my handy dandy note card here. I read 25 books. 11 of them were romances, 9 of them were fantasies. One was a mystery, one was a thriller, one I labeled as a suspense, and one I labeled as a sci fi. 2 of them I read the physical hardcover, 3 of them I read the physical paperback, 6 I read on my Kindle, 12 I read with my ears, 1 I read audio and paperback, and 1 I read audio and the ebook. So I'm just going to go through them. I'm going to try and be quick but not fast. So I started out with Cash by Jessica Peterson. I had just finished up the first 3 Vampire Academy books. I had listened to all 3 of them in a row, and I needed a palate cleanser so bad. So I read this, which I had been seeing on Instagram because I follow Valentine PR because I post some stuff for Laura Pavlov sometimes. And I was like, that cowboy and his mustache. I'm going to read about him. I just remember that I have zero idea what I rated any of these books. So we're just going to pull them up.
That would make it tough.
Yeah, I can't remember 25 ratings. I'm not a miracle worker. I rated Cash 4 stars. It was everything I wanted. Cowboys. It just happened. I was reading it on my Kindle. I was having a great time. Oh, another stat is that 22 of the books that I read, 22 of the 25 were on my physical TBR. So, yeah, I bought 10 books over the weekend, but I read 22 that I physically own in September. So I'm going to call it a win. I read Death at Morning House by Maureen Johnson. I'm a big Truly Devious fan. I love a teen whodunit. This I really enjoyed. It wasn't my fate. I wouldn't say that I like this more than Truly Devious, but that's because I love teen thinks she's a detective, and that wasn't. Marlo was not a detective. Marlo is just a girl, and I loved that about her. This is basically Marlo has a rough go of it at the end of her school year, and so she ends up going to get a summer job on an island that has a manor house on it that some rich doctor with questionable ethics built in the 1930s, and some people died there, and so now it's a tourist attraction, and people are now dying semi-close to it, and just how that is. There's like a past, present, we get to uncover what happened, and really, Marlo isn't even doing the uncovering of what happened in the past. She's just trying to figure out what's happening in the now and trying to not succumb to the creepy house. So I gave Death at Morning House 4.5 stars. Then I listened to Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. I'd been putting this off because I'd heard mixed reviews, and I wasn't quite sure if I'd like the format because I was picturing like textbook style, and it's got footnotes, but I actually really enjoyed the format of it. I did audiobook this, and man, I love Wendell. This is exactly what it sounds like. Emily Wilde is writing a book about that is an encyclopedia of fairies, and she goes to this cold, cold place. Um, she her regular job is teaching at Cambridge, and so she's off writing her book, and then her coworker shows up. He's like, "I'm here to help you," and she's like, "I don't want you to help me," and so on. I like a book that's fantasy, but with like the ittiest bittiest bit of crumbs of a romance. Makes me feel like I'm watching Bones. I then read Wild Eyes by Elsie Silver. I love Elsie Silver. I love everything about her. I love her Instagram. I love her books. I love all of it. Just an icon of a woman. This is following West and Skylar. West works with horses. Skylar is a country music singer. Oh my god. I gave Encyclopedia of Fairies 5 stars. I also gave this 5 stars. Because, man, the kids in this book, West, I love him. There are songs in here because she's a singer. She's writing songs. Elsie Silver got someone to actually write these songs. They're real life songs. But the words on the paper with no music in them, tears. Just tears. I was reading and I got to the part with the songs just yep, because they're in love and she's writing songs. Oh, 5 stars. I then continued my Vampire Academy journey by reading Blood Promise. I also audiobooked this. I've never gone from loving a character so deeply to hating the very essence of their beings so quickly. By the time I got to the end of this, I was furious. I was ranting via text to everyone I know who's read this. I'm not going to tell you anything about it because this is the 4th book in the series. But oh, if you know, and I hold a grudge, as you'll come to see. So I gave this 4 stars because I was pissed. It's a good book. That's the problem. The stuff in here, good. The character in here brought it down a whole half star. It could have been 4.5 stars, but he made me so angry. So then I needed to take a break from Vampire Academy. So I read Under Lock. I did not read this brick of a paperback. I read it on my Kindle very slowly. I've read From Lukov with Love and Wall of Winnipeg and Me, and I liked both of those. I didn't love this. I don't love a morally gray man. I don't love a man who's like, I'm so manly. I just don't like it. I gave it 3.5 stars because I don't know. Dex rubbed me kind of the wrong way. Then I had been waiting for the audiobook of this to come from the library, and so even though this is the 4th one or whatnot, I listened to Crazy Stupid Bromance. This is part of the Bromance Book Club series. I'd already read them all out of whack. I read 5 and then 1 and then 3 or whatever this one is and so on. So I listened to this. These are so funny, like have me out loud laughing at work. This one is Alexis and Noah, and they're like sort of like friends to lovers. She runs a cat cafe and he is like a reformed hacker turned computer whiz, and there's so many cats in this book, and he's such a sweetie pie while also being like able to like destroy his enemies via their finances and their technology. It was so good. I gave it 4 stars. Then I read The Wisteria Society of Lady Scoundrels. I read the paperback. This was so fun. Basically, there is a Wisteria Society of Lady Scoundrels, and so they're like lady pirates, and they fly around in houses, and the man in this book, his name is Ned, or 1,000 other names, and he is sort of a man pirate, and they get up to antics because this like evil pirate captain is trying to take over England and the world and kill all the lady scoundrels, and they got to deal with that. It was so fun. I was having a great time. I was like giggling. I gave it 4.25 stars. I then listened to Secretly Yours, which could not have more stickers on it if I tried. And this was the beginning of the end of the relationship between me and Tessa Bailey. I read Fangirl Down last month, I want to say, and something about the way that man was a man gave me the ick. It was the same kind of thing that I didn't like about Under Lock, that like he was just like so stereotypically man that I didn't like. I didn't love the way that he talked about women. I didn't love the way that he talked to our female main character. And I feel kind of the same way about this. Even though the guy in this book, whose name is Julian, he's supposed to be like this like buttoned up, fancy, like nice guy from a rich family guy. The way every time he talked about our female main character, it made my skin crawl. Like just the way that he talked about women, I didn't like it. I don't know what it is, but I just couldn't do it. It just doesn't work for me. I gave this 2.5 stars because I listened to it and maybe that was the problem, but I just gave me the shivers. So I went straight into an Abby Jimenez to cure my whatever was going on. I read The Friend Zone. This is following Christian and Josh. I say this every time I talk about an Abby Jimenez book, but I love that they have regular people names, because sometimes when you get into an author's fifth book or fifth series of small town romance books, the names happening in those books are blasphemous. No one has ever been named that ever, but Christian and Josh, totally normal names. He's a firefighter, and she's a small business owner, queen, and he like moves to the area and is friends with her best friend's husband, and she's like closed off because of reasons and she doesn't want to date anyone. He just got out of a relationship and so he's not ready to be with anyone, and so they put each other in the friend zone and then they have to make their way out of it. I thought it was really good. I gave it 4.5 stars. It wasn't my number one Abby Jimenez book, but I liked it nonetheless. I then was searching for joy because one thing about the friend zone, be in an emotionally prepared state to read that, it just kind of hurt me at the end. So I was looking for joy, and I found it in my reread of Reckless. Again, let me say again that I love Elsie Silver with my whole soul. This is my favorite Elsie Silver book. I used to be like, oh no, I don't pick a favorite, yada yada. Like I literally met her, and she signed my books. Not this one, I don't think. No, my other covers. I met her, and she signed my books, and I asked for my other copy of Reckless to be the one that was personalized, and she was like, is this one your favorite? And I was like, you could say that, because at the time everybody's favorite was Heartless, like, and so I was like, well, I don't, but my favorite is Reckless. I love Theo Silva. When he barked, sign me directly up. Something about that just really, I love a weird man. And so I wanted to reread this. I've been wanting to reread it, and so I bought it on Audible so I can have it forever. And I listened to it, and it's still 5 stars, and it's still perfect, and I love it so much. So, highly recommend rereading your favorite book when you're searching for joy. Then, another one that I've been waiting for from the library, Isn't It Bromantic? Again, this is book 4. What's a series order? I don't know her. This is following Vlad and Elena, and this might be the best one in the series. I was dying of laughter because Vlad, they call him the Russian because he's Russian, is like the comedic relief in every single one of these books. And so the whole book about him, and he's just a sensitive little bean and he wants his wife to love him, and he's writing a romance novel and he's perfect. I gave this 4.75 stars because they're just like a little too silly goofy for me to get fully deep invested to get a 5 star out of me, but this is the best one, I think. So, I then read The Reaping by Jess Lourey. I read the first Steinbeck and Reed because I was trying to get the Kindle badge of first book in a popular series, and that one popped up. Or maybe it was just popular books on Kindle or whatever. I was just trying to get a Kindle badge, and that one popped up, and I read the description, and it sounded good, and it was like 350 pages, and I was like, sign me up. So I read it. It was called The Taken Ones, and it was so good. And then I discovered it was a series at the end, because I had not realized that it was a series, and that the second one didn't come out until September. And so I waited and waited and waited, and I read it, and it was so good. I like these two characters. They are both deeply flawed and have skeletons stacked to the brim in their closet. But this one was creepy. It was about this like town where like everyone was descended from the original 12 like settlers in this town, and like bunch of creepy stuff. It was really good, but you do have to read the other one first. Then followed it up with another ebook. I read Reckless Memories by Catherine Cowles. I have read all of her backlist except for this series. I'm currently reading Perfect Wreckage, but I'm trying to take it slow so that I don't run out of Catherine Cowles books and then have to wait for her to publish one. She publishes very frequently, but I can't go without one. So that's going to be tough. This series hasn't been my favorite so far from the first one and then this second one that I'm reading, because I do think that this was like her first or second series that she published. So like they're just getting better and better, but this one wasn't a top for me. And the dynamic of this relationship, it's like ex-boyfriend's brother. And like it makes sense in the context of the story, but like I just was like I wasn't sure about it, but I did guess the bad guy correctly. So, for like the first time ever in any mystery, thriller, suspense ever. But I was right. Then I read Hex by Rebecca Dinerston Knight. This was a book club pick for my book club with me and my girlfriends. And I did sort of, I don't know if you can tell, I sort of wrecked this paperback while I read it. This, we thought was going to be more, at least I thought was going to be more fantasy, and it leads heavily literary fiction. It's written in like second person, sort of as like almost a journal to someone else. The main character of this book is unhinged. I just didn't like it. Quite frankly, I gave it 2 stars. And then in the completely opposite direction, I read The House in the Cerulean Sea. I bought this beautiful sprayed edge hardcover copy to match my beautiful sprayed edge hardcover copy of Somewhere Beyond the Sea that I haven't read yet, so we'll get that right out of here. I audiobooked this because the library had it. How fun is that? And it was just available for me to borrow. Clearly, no one at my library knows how good this book is. This was so good. I was like laughing and giggling and tearing up. And this is like a sort of found family story about like this guy who works for Magical Children's Services, and he goes to like do like a visit basically at this house, and this man has these magical youths, and our magic child services guy discovers all of the beautiful things that make these beautiful children unique, and it was so good I gave it 5 stars. I then finally picked Vampire Academy back up after being so angry after Blood Promise, and I read Spiritbound, and this book was really good. I am still upset at that character now after finishing the whole series, and I was while I was reading this. My comment in my spreadsheet where I keep track of everything is just, good lord. This was certainly something I read so much was happening in these 500 pages, and I was eating it up, but I was also still fuming. I gave it 4.75 stars because it was a really good book, and a lot happened, and I was very entertained, but I was still behind angry. I then read Unwanted by Mia Sheridan. This was recommended to me via someone I know on Goodreads liking someone else's Goodreads review that said, you need to read this right now. And so I headed directly to my Barnes & Noble after work and bought it. And then I didn't read it for like 2 months, but then I did finally pick it up. This is about a girl who works for Forest Services, and some people have died, and their main suspect is this man who's been living off the grid in the woods since he was a child, and trying to figure out if he did it and what was going on and why he was living in the woods. And there are like flashbacks to like when he started living in the woods and the story there, and it was crazy. This was crazy from start to finish. And most of the time it was good crazy, but sometimes it was bad crazy. I gave it 4.25 stars. I am trying to branch out in romantic suspense from just reading Catherine Cowles and the occasional Devney Perry book to other authors who write romantic suspense, but I have been spoiled by Catherine Cowles, and so I just want to keep reading her books. I then, via my TBR jar, read Book of Night by Holly Black, and I'm glad that I pulled this out of my TBR jar because it was fun. I liked it. I like Holly Black's writing. I'm quite immersed. I think that there's a lot of magic system to explain in this, like, 320 pages, because there's like shadow magic going on. Like, people have magic in their shadows, and yet, like, I still don't fully understand how the magic system works, and I think if there are more books, it would be good. I don't know that there are going to be more books because I don't know that this one was super popular because it was very dense with magic information. So, I gave it 4 stars. I liked it. If there are more, I'll read them. Then I used 3 hours of what was left of my Spotify listening time to listen to the first 3 hours of One Dark Window, and then I read the rest of it with my eyeballs. I fear this will become my whole personality because it already has, and I fear it has put me in a book slump, but we'll get into that later. So this follows Elspeth, and there are these. She lives in a place that it's called Blunder, where this king 500 years ago got magic from the spirit of the woods, like their god, put it into cards so that people could use magic, because people who are born with magic can degenerate, and like that's bad, and so he wanted a way for them to not do that, and so he made these cards, and that made the spirit angry, and so there's like this mist, and they're trying to get rid of the mist, and it was like I was there. And she's got this nightmare thing living in her head, and oh, I love him. But this was so good. I gave it 5 stars. 5 stars. I'm gonna get a tattoo for this series. I'm serious. It's right here living in my brain, and I'm gonna get it. Then, so I read that. I didn't have Two Twisted Crowns, which is book 2. So I had to go to work where I listened to The Last Sacrifice. And then I had to go pick up Two Twisted Crowns so that I could read it that night after I bought it, because I needed to know. But I did listen to all of Last Sacrifice. This is the final book in the Vampire Academy series. And I still have not forgiven that character. And I had my hopes up for the wrong side of the love triangle, despite knowing outright that I was wrong. Didn't change how I felt. But this book was really good, and it was a good ending to the series, and I did have a good time. And despite that, I was really glad to have read it. And so I gave it 5 stars, because I do think it was an excellent conclusion to the series. I just wish I hadn't have hated that character so much, because it did leave a bitter taste in my mouth. But then I came home and I immediately read all of Two Twisted Crowns, and I gave it 5 stars. If you haven't read this duology, let me get the other one for you. If you haven't read this, or you haven't seen me on my Instagram post about it 5 times in 3 days, please read it. It's so good. It's everything I wanted and more. Please. And this is why I think I might be in a book slump. I listened to Undercover Bromance. This is book 2 in the Bromance Book Club series, and it follows Liv and Mac, and they both have personalities that are not always my sort of energy, but he likes romantic suspense novels. And me too, King. So this was fun. They were like trying to take down this ex-boss who is just the worst ever. And so that was fun. And I liked it. And I gave it 4.5 stars. Then, because I had so much fun with House in the Cerulean Sea. I audiobooked In the Lives of Puppets. And I did really like this. First of all, this is the sprayed edge Barnes & Noble exclusive edition that is so beautiful. I read it with my ears though, but I own the beautiful copy. And I did really like this, but I was coming out of the One Dark Window, Two Twisted Crowns, Shepherd King situation, and so I think that like I was doing this a disservice. And I had read the description when I bought it 4 months ago, so I kind of didn't know what it was about. But it's like a Pinocchio retelling, so basically like, but kind of backwards. There's like this real boy who lives with this automaton man, and they're like inventors together, and then someone kidnaps his automaton father, and he has to go on a journey to get him back. I didn't give this its fair shot, but I still did really like it. I gave it 4.25 stars. I had a good time. And this is Strike 3 for Miss Tessa Bailey. I listened to It Happened One Summer. This one was the best one of the 3. The man did not give me the ick, but the girl, like our female main character, Piper, was kind of insufferable. Like every other chapter, she was fine. Every other chapter. But then, so I just, and I think I already was like seeing my way out of Tessa Bailey, that it's just not for me. And that's okay, because so many people love Tessa Bailey, and I still love her Instagram and her TikTok, and I think she's very funny. And I think there are a lot of funny parts in this book, but the actual romance part is the part that I don't like, and so that's just not going to work out for me. So no more Tessa Bailey for me, unless I cave and I really like the premise of one of them. But I gave this 2.75 stars, but I just didn't like it that much. That was all 25 books that I read in September. I do think that I am in a book slump, because the last book that I finished, so It Happened One Summer, I finished like 2 days ago. And I read 45 pages of Perfect Wreckage yesterday, and I've read like 60 more pages of it today. And I don't think I'm going to read tonight before I go to bed. And I think I read myself out a little bit. I am out of my audiobook craving. And I just think that I've been neglecting some of my other hobbies, including making these videos. Lots of new videos coming soon, living up here in my noggin. So we'll see what I read in October, hoping for spooky books, as always.